Hi everybody, Ryan back here with you again. So found out what was wrong with the Tripac. The alternator was spiking the voltage every now and then. It was really hard to catch. You know, if you know anything about alternators, also, you know, your vehicle runs off DC current, everything on here, batteries are DC and all that. But an alternator, as it is in, you know, the name alternator, it creates AC current, and you have a diode trio. There's 3 diodes in there that actually convert that AC current, whatever that may be, the voltage on that or whatever, it converts that to direct current. You know, to your 14.5 volts. Usually is what this particular alternator, that's what it's rated at. It's 14.5 on the Tripacs. So one of those must have been going bad or something intermittently, possibly. I don't know. But I started to notice it. My inverter would start going off, had an alarm going off, and then I kind of caught it when I turned my truck on, and I just happened to catch the voltage meter down there, and it was almost, you know, it was right after I just shut the Tripac off and I went to start the truck and hit the key, and I noticed it was all the way up, you know, it was in between 14 and 15 volts, so that tells me it's been overcharging. And that's what's been throwing that alt code and shutting the Tripac down. Because if it gets, I believe these are right around 13ish is the bottom side of it, and 15 is the high side, to where it's outside of the parameters to where to shut the Tripac down. So, so I think that's what the issues has been with it. So, excuse me, I got a alternator from Thermo Byproducts out of Portland, Oregon. And this had a 65 amp on it, and I decided, they said we got a 120 amp we can put on there, and I said, yeah, that sounds good. You know, I'd rather have a little bit higher amperage for everything that I'm running. So I went ahead and got it. It was like $180 or something, right around there, 180, 190 with tax and all that. So I had them ship it out with some other stuff, with some engine mounts, and also got a new dryer for this, and a expansion valve that I'll put in probably next time I'm home if I have time. So I got this alternator, and I put this thing in yesterday, and I came over here this morning to get the truck ready to go for tomorrow, to get everything cleaned out and all that and stocked back up, and the Tripac had kicked off again with the same code. So I said, okay, what the heck's going on here? So I cleared it and I started it back up again, and I came down here with my voltmeter, and it wasn't putting out anything. The truck was down, it was right at surface voltage. It was right like at 12.2, which usually your battery should be, surface should be like 12.4 if they're properly charged, right around there. So it's been, with my refrigerator running and all that, it's been running, the Tripac hasn't been running, it's been drawing the batteries down. So I started to call, I figured maybe, okay, I got a bad alternator, what the heck. So I started calling around, and I crossed the number to a Presto Light number, the 65 amp, and there's places you can get it at Advanced or AutoZone, but it's all special order. So I finally broke down and called Thermo King, because everybody else was like a week out, and I got to leave tomorrow, so I need to get this thing back together today. And the guy asked me if I had a 65 or 120, and I told him I had a 65, but I want to do 120, and he said, oh, you can't do that. There's a kit, I guess. This thing, it senses that amperage, that output, and it won't even, if it's a higher, if it's not the right output, it won't even excite the alternator to put anything out. So there's nothing probably wrong with this alternator that I got from Thermo Byproducts. The problem is that this unit knows that it's not the right alternator. He said there is an upgrade you can get that has a diode and a bunch of other stuff you can put on here. I didn't ask him the price, but so there is, you can, if you can't just throw 120, you know, I've done it on pickup trucks and tractors and equipment and everything else where I've put higher amperage alternators on. It's never been an issue, as long as the voltage is the same, you know, 12 or 24 or whatever you're running, and I've never had an issue. So that's why I didn't think much of it. But I guess this thing, the computer and all that, actually knows what alternator is supposed to be on this. So if you're in this situation, make sure you go back on, if you got a 65, go with the 65. If you got 120, go with 120. There's also a difference in pulleys on these too. He told me the 120s actually have a smaller diameter pulley, whereas the 65 has a 3-inch pulley. I think the The 120 amp is like a 2-inch pulley or something like that, so it's a little bit smaller. I think the Evolutions have 120. Mine's the generation before the Evolution, but mechanically they're pretty well the same. But so this is the second time I'm doing this, so I'm going to show you guys what I got going on here, what the process is. It's pretty simple. It don't take too long once you get everything taken apart here. Why I got it apart, I changed out these front engine mounts yesterday. I'm going to change out the back ones too while I'm back in there again. So I'll go ahead and show you the first thing you're going to want to do here is so you're going to want to unhook the grounds, the negatives on your batteries. You don't have to, if you feel more comfortable, you can. Unhook your grounds first, make sure everything, you can leave this jumper in. Mine has this plug where you can just unplug it, but you want to make sure all the grounds are isolated. Like I said, from battery to battery is okay, but the ones coming off the ends and anything going into the harness you want disconnected. Then after that, you can actually, if you touch positive to ground, it won't complete the circuit, so you're fine. Like I said, that's the way I do it. I never unhook everything. I just unhook the ground side, and you're usually safe that way. On my truck, you take that, you take the steps off. I think the T680s are the same way. This is a T660. There's 6 bolts. There's 3 bolts on each step. You just 17 millimeter, pull those out, and you can pull that whole step just slides off. You have to open the hood, but you take that off and disconnect all your grounds. So I took the top cover off, that diamond plate cover, and I took that cover off right there. And you can take this whole bottom tray off. There's only 5 bolts. This one over here is actually slotted, and then there's actually one. If you can see it there. You got one bolt up on top that's slotted. Then there's one right here too, that's right below that one. I forgot. I couldn't figure out why it wasn't coming off. Then you got two more bolts on this side. So that then you can pretty well get to everything. Alright, so down here underneath the unit, you just take, for the tensioner here, you just take this this bolt out here, then you can pull this down, then you can loosen the belt up. You get a connection here, you just push that down, pull that out. Then there's a ground here, and that's that power cable. So if you hadn't unhooked those grounds up there, if you hit, if you arced it out, or if you hit ground, that would spark and maybe catch, get pretty nasty, because that can carry a lot of amperage. But like I said, you take this off, pull these cables off here, the ground and the positive side. Then right up here at the top on the other side, there's a bolt that comes through. It's got a nut inside this little casting here. So you just loosen that up, and it comes right out. And then when you go to tension this, when you start to reassemble, you put everything back together like this. Leave this bolt here loose. You can get the top one kind of snug, but leave this one a little loose. And then there's actually a little place right here where you can take a pry bar and you can pry this outward to get that good tension on there, because if these aren't really tight, they'll squeal really bad when you're running your AC compressor. So I'm going to go and pull this one off real quick and put the new one in and see what we got up there. So yeah, so I don't like doing rework, but especially had other stuff planned for today, but I don't want to have problems out on the road. So that's what we're into right now. I'll go ahead and take that old new one off. So here's the new one. The things you're really going to need. This is a 24 millimeter nut on here. So on the old, if you're taking your old one off, you're gonna have to I bought a new pulley for this because I kind of damaged the other one. Or I'll never get it back off that other alternator. So you're gonna need a 8 millimeter Allen key to hold that shaft, and a 14 millimeter wrench or socket to get it snug. Then I just use an impact and kind of bump it down until it flattens that washer in there out.
It's pretty easy to hold, so just make sure the fan's on the same way it came off.
But that's pretty much it. So I mean, you're just really gonna need a metric socket set, some, you know, couple wrenches, ratchet, and a like I said, if you got an impact, I mean you can use a wrench and hold that shaft with that 8mm hex key or whatever. Yeah, so one here, so you can hold that and turn that if you can get in there. So not too big of a deal, pretty easy. If you change one on a car, it's probably easier to change this one than it is on a car or pickup truck these days. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and get to it, and we'll come right back here once we get it on and try it out. Alright, so I got the alternator put in. I went ahead and got those back engine mounts, stable little rubber bushings put in back there as well in the back. That was a big hassle in the back of the engine, around the exhaust and all that. I'll show you those in a minute. But I got the Tripac running on AC mode right now. I've had it running for about 15 minutes. Voltage was pretty good with that one. I was just running, as soon as I hooked the batteries back up, it started up by itself, and I was putting out about 14.1 volts, which is pretty good. Once I kicked in AC, tested it, I'm down about 13.5 with the condenser fan and all that running. So I think that's a pretty good number, and I also got my inverter on and everything, no alarms going off or nothing like that, so I think we're all good. But I'll go back there to show it to you. It's going to be a little bit loud because it's running right now on you know, on AC mode. But I'll show you where you test it at if you got a multimeter and all that, and you can pretty well shut it down. And I think I'm pretty well good to go as far as that goes. And next up, I'm going to do change the coolant level, the infamous coolant level sensor on the Kenworth out here. I'll show you guys that, and pick everything up here and pretty well call it a day and get ready to head out early tomorrow morning. Okay, if you got a multimeter like this one, put that on DC voltage, and then the two terminals you're going to test, you've got ground right here, and that's your positive. So I'll go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to set this here, and you can see the voltage. About 13.5 with everything running, so I think that's a pretty good number. It's not spiking, pretty stable, so I think we'll be pretty good to go there. Alright, so I'm pretty satisfied with those numbers. Sorry about the noise, it's a little loud down there with that thing running. But yeah, so you've got the ground terminal and the positive terminal. So if you got a multimeter like the one that I have, or even a voltmeter, whatever you got, you can you don't even have to touch. I mean, just get one probe on the ground. I mean, you can reverse them. It might say negative, but it's still the same reading. So yeah, you can get a good reading off of those right off the alternator there. And like I said, we're with the condenser fan and all that running, AC all running, inverter on, everything running there. We're 13.5 volts. I think that's pretty good, and it's pretty stable. But I'm going to show you guys those motor mounts real quick while we're here, and what the process was on those. Okay, so these are the engine mounts right here. There are two pieces. There's two here, and there's two in the back, and those are hard to get to. Like I said, it made, with that alternator out, it made it really easy. But even behind that exhaust, actually, I was able to get the bolt out the top. But when I went back together with it, I put the bolt in, you know, up through the bottom, because with that old mount was wore out, it was easy to pull it out to the side. But with the new one being really tight, I had to put that bolt up through the bottom. It really doesn't matter which way, just as long as you have the big washers on top, and then the smaller washer right here on the bottom. So these are only $10, $9 I think, from Thermo Byproducts is where I got them. These are the old ones. So here's what this basically looks like. This you're gonna have to, you'll take this bolt out. You know, it's just a straight through bolt right here. You take that loose, pull the bolt up out of it, and then you're gonna have to take like a floor jack like this one, and you can actually just jack up on the front. You can jack up right here on the bottom of the compressor once you get these bolts out, and that'll lift it up, and that'll allow you to slide this out, because these are, you know, up underneath this plate. So you're gonna have to jack it up enough where you got enough clearance where you can slide this in. And then this piece actually goes outside. So this is gonna sit in there, then this sits in on top of it, on top of that other plate, and then that big washer, then it all gets pulled tight. But here's what's left of the front ones. So you can see there was nothing left of these guys, and the back ones were in pretty bad shape as well. So once these get worn out, this whole, when you're especially running AC, when that compressor is kicking in and out, this whole thing will start shaking real bad, and you'll start ripping wires out of your sensors and everything else. That's what happened to me out in California with that temperature sensor, because the wiring's so tight there that when it gets loose and starts jerking, it starts ripping your wiring out of this thing. So like I said, for $40, I guess, I got all 4 of them and changed all those out. So that's all. Like I said, these are all pretty well garbage. So I'm glad I got that done. Got the alternator in, belt's nice and tight, everything's running pretty good. Probably next time I get home, I think I'm gonna change that, you know, evacuate the system, you know, and change the expansion valve and the dryer up there, which is basically a filter for the system for the most part. And the dryer's right on the back, and then the expansion valve being there on the evaporator coil inside the truck. So we'll probably do that next time I get home if I got time. I'm going up to Washington State, so I'm not expecting, you know, that 130 degree weather, 125, 130 degree weather we experienced down in you know, Southern California last time. But with that, we'll go ahead and turn this around. Alright, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pretty well call it a day on this job. I'm going to change that coolant level sensor out. I'm going to do a video on that real quick, and that's pretty simple. Like I said, a separate little video on that specifically. But as far as the Tripac, I think will be good for this next trip. And when I come home, we're probably going to do that expansion valve and that dryer. Then I recharge the system with fresh refrigerant. So like I said, I hope you all liked the video. Hope that helps you out if you need that information. And you know, subscribe, hit the bell for the updates, and we'll see you all next time.